I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, and this is a breaking news alert. The Trump-backed MAGA extremist traveling fascist circus tour known as the American Freedom Tour, because in typical Orwellian fashion, just call the most anti-American thing the American Freedom Tour. Anyway, it is now being reported that it is struggling to pay its vendors. It's on the verge of financial insolvency. Investors are potentially going to file lawsuits against it. In other words, this is typical Donald Trump stuff. You know, everything he's ever done goes bankrupt. Everything he's associated with has disastrous financial consequences for this man's entire life. You set aside the politics, which are hateful and disturbing and extremist and the worst for America. This man is the worst businessman ever. He's the worst negotiator. He is the biggest grifter ever. But here, one of the things that we're learning about too is while vendors aren't getting paid and while investors are getting screwed, guess the person who isn't getting screwed, who cut the multi-million-dollar deal, who actually made the money despite the fact that there are no other events even listing on the American Freedom Tour website. Oh, you guessed it. It's Donald Trump, of course, because in all of his endeavors, he's the one who makes the money. The investors hold the bag. The investors get pissed off. They file lawsuits. It gets dragged out, as Donald Trump likes to do in all of his courtroom proceedings. And then he moves on and grifts and defrauds the next group of people. And this one, the American Freedom Tour, its founder is a guy named Brian J. Forte. And get this, he hasn't filed for bankruptcy once, no, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5 times. And he just filed again for personal bankruptcy protection recently for unrelated matters. But this is the individual who is heading up this American Freedom Tour. And what this tour was supposed to do was host these for-profit events. This is not the Save America organization events. By the way, that is being investigated by the Department of Justice for its criminality. But this is a for-profit touring company that partnered with Trump to hold these events where they would sell tickets from anywhere for $55 to $4,500, and people like Kimberly Guilfoyle would do her dances on stage, and Don Jr. would say all of the things he says about her on stage, which is like completely disturbing and disgusting and weird. And they would dance, and then all of the MAGA QAnon supporters would put their fingers in the air, and that would be what these tours were about. But they're not paying their vendors. Their investors are getting livid. Their founder, who was declared bankruptcy 5 times, you know, and one of the things that they also believe is that they're setting up this like gala event, this big Mar-a-Lago gala where they're going to try to recoup some of their losses by holding this event at Mar-a-Lago. But when you ask these specific people, and Washington Post did a great expose on it, so I want to give them a shout out. Josh Dowsey and Isaac Arnsdorf wrote a great article. Trump's paid speech organizer is struggling financial. Everybody go check out that article. But when they asked the American Freedom Tour people like, are you financially struggling? You know, they said, oh, we just missed a few events, but we're doing fine. But when they then asked people who had left the company and they asked investors, they're thinking about filing lawsuits against the company. It says some unpaid investors are preparing possible legal action, demanding full payment plus interest, according to a demand letter obtained by the Washington Post. If the company doesn't pay, the group wants Forte to step aside and give them control. Vendors, speakers, and other unpaid participants are lining up to collect. A lawyer working for the investors said in an email to the group, quote, the intention is to put a board of governance in place. And then Forte, of course, has his gaslighting comment back. He goes, the tour has a solid relationship with its investors. Oh, that really sounds like a solid relationship with investors. And then it says in July, the company missed payroll according to a note to staff from Forte. Quote, "We are experiencing some growing pains and will be okay," he said in an internal message reviewed by the Washington Post after they failed to meet their payroll. And then the article goes on to say that Forte recently sought personal bankruptcy protection for a fifth time, and the Department of Justice accused Forte of abusing the bankruptcy system to try to thwart foreclosure proceedings and criticized him for traveling to Puerto Rico rather than making this fifth bankruptcy case a priority. There is currently no planned events that are even listed on the website of this American Freedom Tour or whatever. Another show was canceled recently in North Carolina. They've been canceling a number of shows. A planned show in Birmingham, Alabama was canceled. And so, in other words, typical Trump stuff. And we know this also with the Truth Social group. Remember, the Truth Social has failed to pay its vendor, the one who does its networking hosting, over $1.8 million, and the Truth Social is struggling financially. I believe they have a completely empty office in Sarasota, which they claim is their corporate headquarters, which I believe they moved from the empty office recently to just like a random PO box is supposed to be the office space for Truth Social. And so, you know, as I said earlier, I said you remove the politics, which it's hard to because it's so nasty and despicable and evil and harmful to this country. But these people are incredibly incompetent, and their ilk are incredibly incompetent. You know, and this is why, too, when you look, though, at people like Governor Abbott of Texas or Governor DeSantis in Florida, like when you look at Republican leadership, the governor of Mississippi or the previous governor of Mississippi also, you know, who engaged in like literally stealing welfare dollars, apparently, with people like Brett Favre and others. But like the level of kind of criminality, fraud, and just outright incompetence in all of their business dealing, you know, that's not capitalism. You know, they view that as capitalism. That is oligarchy style, kind of Russian, where people don't have to, you know, play by the rules. They just think that they have all the privilege in the world to not pay and do whatever the hell it is that they want, and that they will be divined with powers to not have to actually run a payroll or to do things. But like these governors, these people are just so freaking incompetent. I mean, you go to Greg Abbott, like let's put aside politics for a second. Here's someone in a state that's known for energy, and he can't even have an electric power grid that works. Can't even have a working electric power grid. Let's go to Florida, where you have someone like DeSantis, right? You know that you're going to get hit with hurricanes like every year or very frequently. We know that that takes place. How are you not dealing with the collapse of the insurance industry in your state? You're so focused on talking about Disney World and woke this and kidnapping asylum seekers, and you know, that's your focus, and CRT and making up all of these BS issues. You don't focus on what's going to happen if there is a hurricane and how can we make sure that our people of the state have insurance. Like, you don't focus on those issues. That's how incompetent you are. But that's the whole MAGA philosophy. It's dangerous, it's deranged, but ultimately they are the worst business people in the world. These are not capitalists. These people right here are the most despicable losers in the world. Anyway, I could go on forever, but yet another Trump partnership tanking. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hey, hit the subscribe button right now. We are on our way to 1 million subs, thanks to you. And if you want to support independent media like this, go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. That's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I always get asked by you, how can I help grow this independent media network? That's how. There's different membership packages with exclusive benefits. Join the one that suits you the best. Whatever you can do to help is appreciated, but let's grow this independent media platform together. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.